Hey everyone, this is Christine with LeftSideArt. Today I have another art journal page for you that I will break down into 3 easy steps to get you going. This first step is creating the background. I am applying gel medium from TriArt. You can use any gel medium that you want or liquid glue. And I'm using that to prep my surface so I can glue down some Tim Holtz tissue paper. I'm using a tool from Prima Marketing that has a rubber silicone tip rather than a brush, but you can use a brush or a palette knife to spread the glue, and now this is gesso around. The gesso that I'm using is white and it's opaque, but I have watered it down a bit so it'd be more translucent. I do this just because the tissue paper is relatively dark and I want to just fade it into the background a bit. And after it dries, which it dries pretty quickly, but I use my heat tool, trying to plan out exactly what I want to do. This is a little pack of pre-cut pieces. Most of it's colored. There's some black and white pieces in here from Tim Holtz. And I'm going with the butterfly theme today, which is why I started with the tissue paper with butterflies in it. And I'm just trying to figure out exactly what color combo I'm looking for. Now I'm using some ink sprays from Delusions. The purple is crushed grape. The blue is Calypso teal. And the orange is Tangerine Dream. Depending on how hard you compress the squirt bottle at the top, either you'll get a nice fine mist or droplets, and I like a little bit of both. I'm just cleaning and splotching up with a baby wipe or paper towel to get some of the heavier drops that I'm just not interested in keeping. I'm just going to trim around my edges, get rid of the extra tissue paper. And this stamp set is by Finnabar. It goes in with the butterfly theme that I'm looking to use. And these are distress crayons from Tim Holtz. I believe this is set number 3, where they have a lot of neutrals, blacks, grays, browns, whites. I'm just spreading it around my finger. I wet my finger a little bit from a cup of water that I had nearby to move it around. These distress crayons will dry, so you have to be a little quick with it, and then once it settles, it's basically not going to move again. I'm using some of that same spray that I used earlier on the background, along with some Tim Holtz stencils. What I'm doing here is really just adding some interest and texture to my background. This is some black gesso, again another Tim Holtz stencil, and I'm using a palette knife. This gesso is from Art Basics and it dries with a very matte finish. Sometimes I'll just take my palette knife and apply it directly to my paper. Because I applied the tissue paper and all the gel medium gesso, the background is not completely flat, so we'll pick up on some of those ridges, which is my intention. Now I'm just adding some white splatters. You can use white gesso, white paint, it doesn't really matter, whatever you have around. I'm using archival ink here in the jet black and the Finnabar stamps. You don't have to use the acrylic block, you can just use your fingers to hold the stamp, but it does make it a bit convenient and a little faster, I think, using the acrylic block. Now I'm adding some butterflies back into the background because after I added so much ink with the sprays, I couldn't really see the tissue paper anymore. And because I have such a heavy dark background, I like a lot of contrast, so I'm stamping white cardstock with these stamps. I'm going to fussy cut it out. I do this with the main stamp and a lot of the accessory stamps as well in the set. I use the archival black ink so that the ink will not smear after it's dry. This took a little bit of time to do, and I was getting a little frustrated with it, but I think it ended up working out pretty well in the end. I like the black and white in comparison to the dark and very colorful background. Now I have each of the pieces cut out. I'm just assembling them around my page, trying to figure out where I want what. I was trying to use these circles to show that things were floating up, like the butterflies were taking off, because the two quotes I have on here, "Don't forget to fly" and "Dare to spread your wings." This is a little unusual layout for me in that I usually have one main quote, but because this spread is so large and everything kind of goes together, being from the same set, I thought it'd be alright to have a very small quote on each side rather than one large one just on one side. Now I'm gluing everything down using the gel medium. Again, you can use regular glue if you want, but this dries relatively quickly. I can still move things around a little bit if I need to, but I also apply this gel medium to the top of each of my pieces, so if I go to add like any distress paint or distress crayons, which I do later, it will take it very nicely and it won't just absorb straight into that paper. I am using my Dilutions art journal. It's very large. It's about a 9 by 12, I think. I used this in my last video as well, and it has really good quality mixed media paper, and it comes with like a little folder in the front cover to hold whatever you might have. It has a spot for your pen. It's a really nice notebook overall for creating these type of spreads. You can also do something like this on a mixed media board, or like a flat canvas board, or a canvas in general, but I like this so that it takes up less space. I have more fun playing around and not worrying about having to store a mixed media board. And the paper is thick enough, it really does hold all this media very well. For my heavier pages, I do glue 2 pages back to back. I don't think it's really that necessary, but I like things to be a little more rigid sometimes. Now I'm going through adding the Tim Holtz Distress Crayon to each of these pieces and try to give it a little bit of color. This one comes from the first set of crayons. He has multiple sets. I think they go up to maybe 12 or so, and each of them have 6 crayons, or you can buy them open stock. This orange as well comes from the first set. And I thought these colors played in well with my background, so I'm just trying to tie everything together, adding a little color here and there. And remember, these crayons do dry, so you have a limited time to smudge them around a little bit with your finger or with a baby wipe until they are completely settled. I'm just trying to add a bit more of a border to my project and tie in some of that white here and there. I use Eileen's tacking glue to glue down any heavier objects like these gears and little clock pieces I use for some of the bodies of the butterflies. In the main image with the girl, the butterfly wings where it says don't forget to fly on the right hand side, she has some of these gears kind of drawn in around her body, her hair, and in the bottom part of the image, so I wanted to tie it in with what I was doing here. And that's about it for this page. I do provide free downloads of my projects that I do each month. I add the month and year so that you can use these as backgrounds to your computers, phones, or tablets. A link will be provided in the description below along with all the supplies used. If you've liked this, please remember to give me a thumbs up and comment below, and I'll see you next time. Thank you.